Hey, what's up you guys? This is Elias. Just wanted to make sure to remind you before we start this video to make sure you subscribe, make sure you like this video, and I also wanted to start off by just apologizing. I did on the last video, I said there was going to be some, you were going to be able to click on some of the articles that I was talking about, but I didn't realize that on YouTube they actually make you verify yourself first. So yeah, I have to wait 30 days before I can put any links or anything like that on the bottom, or on the bottom. So I was talking about a few stories and I wasn't able to put the links because YouTube let me know that. So just a heads up, if you didn't see the links, that's the reason why. So as soon as they let me know I can start putting links on the bottoms of the videos, I'll make sure I do that. So please be patient with me. I wanted to get straight into it. This video is going to talk about just something that I think is important for anyone. It's going to be probably, I would think, mainly jiu-jitsu based. And what I'm going to talk about is promotions. When should you ask for promotions? When should you get promoted? And there's a ton of, I think, different ways. When I say different ways to be promoted, it's because a lot of schools have different structures on how they promote. There's no governing body in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, unlike other martial arts. For example, judo, which has a governing body so that everything's uniform, everything's pretty much based off of a specific guideline. In Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, there is no specific guidelines. Depending on what team you train with, that's going to be your guideline. So each team has a different structure. I'm a part of Gracie Baja, of course. So at Gracie Baja, I believe the structure that we have put in place is something that's really powerful. But of course, I'm biased. I've said that before, and about Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, but of course about Gracie Baja as well. So I wanted to talk a little bit about how do we know when it's time to be promoted, because in some schools that you're at, they don't have any structure. Like, as far as when I mean structure, they don't have a specific way to gauge or to measure on when you're ready to be promoted. Some schools do tests, but even with tests, you don't know when you're ready for a test. It's usually a scenario where they let you know, like, hey, I think you're ready to be tested for another belt. And how do you know when they're going to let you know that they think you're ready? Especially if you come from a huge school, right? When I say huge, you come from a school of, I would say, anywhere from 150 and above. If you come from a school that has more than 150 students, you're going to definitely be, I would say, lost in the system if you don't have some type of structure. Let me explain a little bit what I mean. So at my academy, we do a thing called attendance cards. There's a lot of different ways that people keep attendance. At my academy, we do manual attendance cards. Some academies do computer attendance, where you come in, you log in a number, and that helps keep track of the attendance. And in my opinion, I think that's the best way to be able to understand when somebody's going to get promoted. And let me explain a little bit. When you come into my academy, you pick up a card and you turn in that card, and at the end of whenever time frame, in our case, we go off of the IBJJF guideline as far as promotions go. Whenever you're due for promotion, you're going to have a red dot that's going to tell us that you're ready for a promotion. And as long as you've been coming consistently and you've been meeting all the requirements as far as attendance go, then you're going to be promoted. There are some exceptions, and the thing I like about my academy system is that we not only have you turn in an attendance card, but it also has discretion. So for example, if you were, let's say you were scheduled to be promoted next week Monday, and I saw that on next week Monday, you had the correct amount of attendance dates, but maybe your attitude during class has been, a little tough. You haven't been taking care of your partner, or just you've done something just all around that's just kind of been a little bit of a nuisance at the academy. Then I'm going to talk to you and I'm going to let you know that before I promote you, I think we have to make sure that we can fit in with your promotion, your integrity, and make sure that you have good behavior before I promote you. And most times, I would say 99% of the times, people are going to be promoted because, for the most part, I think people understand when they come into jiu-jitsu school that they're going to learn discipline, build self-confidence, and they're going to be in a better place. So their attitudes are usually, regardless of what they were before they walked in the door, they are pretty straight and narrow, and they tend to do the right thing while they're training. There are some exceptions, and in those exceptions, we have the discretion to be able to say we're going to hold off on this or whatever the case may be. It could be also technically. Sometimes people come in and, at my academy, we have the guideline of time, and in some cases the time that we have guidelines for some people just aren't enough. They just aren't learning quick enough, or the techniques aren't relaying as well to them as they would hope, and that's okay. And sometimes you can see that in instructor, and sometimes they mention it to you, although usually whenever somebody mentions something to me, I usually tend to remind them that I'm going to do what I think is best as far as when it's time for them to get promoted, and it's always going to be with their best interest in mind, right? So it's never going to be like, oh, I'll promote you when I think you're ready or whatever the case. Like if you've put in the time and you've learned the techniques, I'm going to promote you, and unfortunately it doesn't really matter what you think. That's the responsibility of a professor, of a black belt, and I take that responsibility serious. But on the other hand, we have other academies that don't have any structure, and I think that's I think that's like really tough. I mean, you can comment down below if you don't train with a Gracie Baja or with an academy that has some sort of structure on when you're going to get promoted. I'm sure there's a ton of different opinions. I've talked to a ton of people since I've been with the jiu-jitsu world, and I know that there's a lot of different ways that people perceive promotions, especially a lot of times it depends where you started. If you started at a school that doesn't have any type of structure on getting promoted, a lot of time the mentality is like, oh, my professor will promote me when he thinks that I'm ready. That's the way we do it at my academy. In my opinion, that's false. In my opinion, I mean, not trying to argue or anything like that. Again, you can put in the comments if you have some ideas on or even if you disagree with me. But in most cases, I think when you have a school that's 100, 150, 200 or more, and your professor tells you that he's going to give you a promotion when he thinks you're ready, usually he's going to think you're ready when he remembers. Because if you think about it, just to put it in perspective, think about 200 people, kids and adults, that you would have to remember. All the members at this school, you would have to remember when it was that you last promoted them, when it was that you think they were ready to get promoted. It's impossible. And so for professors, I always thought it's just more of a question. Like if a professor sees a student that has been, let's say, a blue belt for a while, and they usually, if your professor's asking you, like, hey, Elias, when did I promote you last? You answer the question, of course, and you get promoted the following class or a week or two, or if you're having like a big belt promotion ceremony at your school and you get promoted them, that question, the reason he was asking you that question is probably because he had no idea when you had got promoted last, because he doesn't have structure. There's nothing to remind him, to let him know when it was due, right? And in the beginning, if you have a small academy, if you have under 100 students, that's probably possible. I've done it where I'll, even with the attendance cards we have at my academy, because we started a new school here in Palm Desert, California, and so for me, when because we have under 100 students, I sometimes will think like, oh, when is this person supposed to be promoted? I think I promoted them. It's coming up pretty soon, and I'll be able to reference back to their attendance card and see, oh, I was right. It's been about so and so time, and it's coming up. I was correct. But when you start to get to 150, 200 or above, that's impossible to do. If you think that your professor, if you have over 150 to 200 students in your academy, is just going to remember when you're scheduled to be promoted, man, I'm really sorry that you think that way, because it's not possible, man. For a person, unless that person has a photogenic memory, how are they going to know when you were due? Again, they're probably going to have to ask. And I think that's why to have some sort of structure, and having a structure doesn't mean that you're going to not give promotions based off of merit or based off of discretion, because there's also, if somebody's competing or, something like that, competes a lot, that person might progress quicker, even with the structure that we have. From in my example, I know my professor, Marcio Fotosa, he was actually promoted when he had competed. He won the worlds at blue belt. He got his purple belt. He won purple. He got brown. He won at brown. He got black. He got promoted to his black belt in 4 years. So from blue, I mean, and that's a pretty quick timeline. And he comes from a structured, weird environment, but he got promoted quickly because he was winning things. So that's an exception. If you are someone who is just a hobbyist, you come to train 2 to 3 days a week and you enjoy training jiu-jitsu, then great for you. And how can you know when you're going to get promoted? So it's tough because especially in jiu-jitsu, it's an environment where we're taught to kind of not ask for promotion. So a lot of times you'll hear people say or think like, man, I feel like I'm ready to get promoted, but I haven't been promoted yet, or whatever the case is. I've had a ton of different friends, not from the same organization I came from or the same academy I came from, who, I'll ask them like, hey man, how long have you been a blue belt, or how long have you been a purple belt? And they'll say, I've been a blue belt for 4 years. And I'll be, oh wow, you've been a blue belt for a while. Did you miss some time? Was there some moments where you weren't able to come? And they'd say to me like, no, you've been training pretty consistently for 4 years. Like, oh, when you're gonna get your promotion? Oh, my professor will give it to me when he's ready. Let me tell you something. He's not going to give it to you when he's ready. He's going to give it to you when he remembers that you were due. So if you're not a competitor, if you're not somebody fresh in his mind, or a lot of schools have cliques, if you're not somebody that's part of his clique, then you're going to get that belt when he remembers that he hasn't given you a promotion in a while, and probably, again, is going to ask you a question. And if you hear that question, then you know what it means. So promotions are, I think structure is great for promotions. If you don't agree, I'd be curious to hear your comments on why. Like really give me your opinion on why. Not just some comment of like I've heard everything before, but just like, hey, like my professor will give it to me when he's ready, like I just talked about. Because to me, that doesn't work, man. And if you come from that kind of structure, then I feel sorry for you. And I'm glad you're training jiu-jitsu. I'm glad you're doing the thing that I love and I hope you love. But let me tell you, the structure is good to know where you stand. Just think about this. Think about if you went to college. Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu takes 6 to 8 years to get a black belt. Think about if you went to college, and when you went to college, they told you, you know what, you're going to go into these different classes, and we're going to let you know when we think that you're ready to move on to the next class or to the next subject or whatever it may be to start to go towards your major. Could you imagine how many people would be in colleges with no direction? Impossible. Colleges have direction. When you go into a college, they say, hey, you have this many credits that you have to complete for this subject before you can complete this subject and move on to a new subject that'll gear you towards your major. Same thing in jiu-jitsu. When you go to train, you have to have some type of measuring stick to know like, hey, this is what my time frame is. Oh, otherwise you're just spinning your wheels. So not to talk bad on any academy or anything like that. That's not my intent. I just wanted to give my opinion on promotions and structures and that kind of stuff. I've seen videos and heard people talk about when is the proper time to ask for your promotion, or when do you think you should be promoted. My opinion is get involved with a school that has structure. Get involved with a school that has some type of formula to help you understand when you're supposed to get promoted. Anything else, in my opinion, is just either one of two things: really small academy that it really is just personalized, or has an instructor that is just doesn't understand structure and making things easier for themselves. And it could be a culture thing. It's not maybe their fault, but of course at Gracie Barra Palm Desert, you're going to have structure and you're going to know where you stand and whether you're getting your promotion or not. And that's the way I've always been taught at all the Gracie Barras I've come up, and it's the way I believe is fair. And just one last thing before we end this is, I remember having a conversation with Master Carlos Gracie Jr., who was the one who gave me all of my belts. And I remember having a conversation with about attendance cards, and I'm sure there's some article you can look up. I don't have any reference to it or anything like that, but this is just off the top of my head. But I remember him talking about, like, I don't know why people talk about there never have been attendance cards, or attendance cards never existed before. And he said that's not true. He said, I can remember in my family when we used to have the Gracies come train, they used to only do private lessons at that academy. And he mentioned to me that when they used to do private lessons, in order to make sure or to know what time, what moment to promote, they used to have attendance cards. So when you came into a private lesson with one of the Gracies back in Brazil at their academy, when you were doing private lessons, you came in and you collected, or they collected for you, they had on the side an attendance card for you. So they can keep track of how many private lessons you've taken, how many, what curriculum you're in. There was a curriculum that they followed and everything. So the fact that you should want to follow or have some kind of structure if you want to go on this jiu-jitsu journey. So that's my opinion. If you guys disagree, you can comment on the bottom, but I'm a big believer in a structure to know where you stand. And shouldn't you be too? I don't know. That's my opinion. And I'll be curious to hear what your guys' opinions are. That's it. I'll talk to you guys soon. Remember, subscribe. Like the video if you guys enjoyed what I'm talking about. I'm going to keep talking about different things, but this is something I'm passionate about. I'm sure I'm going to talk about it more in the future again. And make sure you guys share with your family, share with your friends, and let them know about this video if you guys were, if it was something that was helpful for you. Talk to you soon. Bye. I have fun with you now.